And welcome to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case.
And I'm Renata Kiss.
And tonight, Donald Trump speaks at the Republican National Convention.
Meanwhile, rumors swirl about the fate of Biden's campaign.
And an American reporter is convicted in Russia. All right, we begin with the big news of the night. That is, Donald Trump formally accepted the Republican nomination for president last night when he gave his first speech since last Saturday's assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. For the first 20 minutes of his roughly hour-and-a-half-long speech, a quieter and frankly more introspective Donald Trump recounted his experience of being shot, saying he only survived thanks to the grace of God.
So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood. I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
Trump also honored Corey Camprator, the firefighter who died at the rally while shielding his family from the gunfire.
The shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Corey Camprator. Unbelievable person, everybody tells me. I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours, and this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement and greatness. This is what we need.
Pundits have described these opening moments of his speech as perhaps the best and most impactful speech Trump has ever given. The rest of the speech was more of a typical Trump rally affair, slamming the Biden administration's policies while painting a hopeful vision for the future.
Together we will save this country, we will restore the republic, and we will usher in the rich and wonderful tomorrows that our people so truly deserve. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before. Simply put, we will very quickly make America great again.
Now, despite Trump's moving speech, reactions were somewhat mixed among undecided voters. A CNN focus group graded Trump's speech from A to D, with the majority grading it as average.
So I'm going to start here with you. What letter grade do you give that speech?
B.
C.
B.
C.
D.
D. A. C.
B.
B. C.
A.
B.
So B and C seem to be the most prevalent grades.
Participants were then asked what they paid attention to the most during Trump's speech.
I was listening to his tone of voice, to his way of speaking and encouraging us and bringing unity to the country.
Why'd you give it a C?
Because his rhetoric hasn't changed about the election, 2020 election, and I'm really concerned that we're going to have another issue depending on who wins.
Mother and daughter, the grade you gave it?
I gave it an A.
And why'd you give it an A?
The thing I was looking for was a change, and I felt I heard that change in his voice. I was looking for his discussion on getting unity together in the country, as well as the border control.
Most people agreed that while Trump started out strong, the quality of his speech declined as he went on. When the 11 participants were asked if the speech had influenced their decisions on who they would vote for, 4 individuals said yes. All 4 of those people said they will now vote for Donald Trump.
I can certainly understand some complaints that it was a bit long, but I think
Right.
on the whole, based on what you just said, it was overall a win for the former president.
Yeah, I think he's been successful.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right. Meanwhile, tensions between Congress and federal security agencies are hitting new highs as Republicans accuse FBI and Secret Service officials of stonewalling answers about the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. This comes as FBI Director Chris Wray has now declined to testify before Congress about the assassination attempt. House Speaker Mike Johnson described a recent phone call between members of Congress, the FBI Director, and the Director of the Secret Service, that would be Kim Cheadle, as overall unsatisfactory.
They did not give us satisfactory answers to some very important questions, and some of it needs to be in a classified setting, I suppose. But I'm prepared this morning to call on President Biden to fire to Director Cheadle. Yesterday, I said that she should resign. It's clear that she has no intention to do so. But the oversight here, the mistakes, the ineptitude, whatever it is, was inexcusable.
Meanwhile, new whistleblower reports from Congressman Jim Jordan, they reveal that systemic problems were happening inside the Secret Service. They say the agency is understaffed and that an event featuring First Lady Jill Biden took resources away from the former president on Saturday.
Meanwhile, 2 victims from the attempted assassination have reportedly improved their conditions from critical to serious. Yesterday, the Allegheny Health Network told reporters that 74-year-old James Koppenhaver and 57-year-old David Dutch have improved their conditions since being hospitalized on Saturday. Despite the improvement in condition, family members of Koppenhaver stated that he suffered life-altering injuries. A lawyer from Koppenhaver said that although he is receiving daily care and is in good spirits, the gravity of this situation is still sinking in. Marine veteran David Dutch is reportedly still recovering after being shot twice in the liver and stomach. A veterans group of which Dutch is a member of said in a statement, quote, "Our immediate support continues for David and his family as he continues his recovery from this attack." Both men were seriously injured after being struck by gunfire from 20-year-old Thomas Crooks, who attempted to assassinate Donald Trump on Saturday at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to the other side of the aisle, where the rumor mill is absolutely abuzz about the future of President Biden's campaign. Over the past 24 hours, multiple reports have emerged suggesting Biden is perhaps on the verge of dropping out of the race entirely, as top Democrats, such as Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, have asked him to step aside. Axios reports Biden could even end his campaign as soon as this weekend, while a source close to the president himself tells NBC News, quote, "We're close to the end," although the Biden campaign is telling a drastically different story. Appearing on MSNBC News this morning, Biden campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon said Biden isn't going anywhere.
We know that we've slipped a bit from the debate, and we know that the president has to prove to the American people exactly what he believes, that he's in this to win this, he can do this. Not only that we have a campaign to do it, but he can do it. And he is, the only person that's done it before. As he has been having discussions and hearing the concerns that have been talked about on your show and others, he's also hearing from voters. And what they're saying is, we've got you, Joe. We are in this. Stay with us. For every person that said that they are concerned, we've had another person that's seen him and have said, you are our guy and we want to be with you.
The campaign released a memo earlier today insisting Biden will remain on the ticket. It said this, quote, "Joe Biden has made it more than clear he's in the race and he's in it to win it. Moreover, he's the presumptive nominee and there is no plan for an alternative nominee." Should Biden stay in the race, it will be a major risk for Democrats as polls continue to show him basically lagging behind Donald Trump consistently.
What we have here is every single day of the 2024 calendar year, Joe Biden has been trailing Donald Trump 100% of the days. On any day you take a national average, Joe Biden has been trailing Donald Trump. Compare that to where we were back in the 2020 campaign, where every single day up to this point in the campaign, Joe Biden was ahead of Donald Trump on 100% of the days.
Oh, really?
That was CNN polling analyst Harry Entner. He then went on to say that the time to replace Biden is running out.
The two examples of incumbent presidents in the modern era who could have run for re-election and decided not to were Harry S. Truman in 1952 and Lyndon Baines Johnson back in 1968. When Johnson and Truman got out, there was over 100 days to go until the Democratic National Convention. Now we're a month to go. If they're going to act, it seems like they should do it fast. But the fact is, every single day that we wait, it just seems that the chance of Biden being the nominee increases because the fact is, time is running out.
And before a break here, a bit more than half of Democrats are in favor of Kamala Harris stepping up to the presidential plate. A new AP NORC poll found that 6 out of 10 Democrats think Harris would do a good job in office. About 2 in 10 liberals think she wouldn't do a good job, while another 2 in 10 were undecided. Overall, about 3/4 of Democrats have a positive view of the vice president, which aligns with their view of Biden. However, when Americans in general are taken into account, only 4 out of 10 have a favorable opinion of her, while half hold negative views of Harris. In addition, about 1 in 10 Americans say they don't have an opinion on her, while 6 out of 10 disapprove of Biden. The AP says there is no American citizen who doesn't have an opinion on President Biden. And we dive into international news up next. We'll be right back.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Do you know what you are supporting when you purchase mutual funds and stocks? Think about it. When you invest in a company, you make a decision to support the things that that company supports. And it may not be things that you agree with. Financial Issues is a ministry teaching people like you how to invest biblically, responsibly, keeping your investments clear of companies that may support an ungodly agenda. Learn more by going to financialissues.org. Financialissues.org.
But I felt very comfortable in that decision because I found a lot of support. Like everyone here, always made sure keep in contact with me. This is what ultimately changed my decision. Knowing that I had all this support that I didn't know I had. Now that he's here, he's 4 months old. I look at him and I honestly it just makes me want to cry.
Hey, and welcome back to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case. Let's move away from the 2024 election just for a little bit to take a look at what's going on elsewhere in the world, as more than 200 staffers for lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are now calling for Congress to boycott an upcoming speech from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Staffers representing 122 different congressional offices anonymously signed that letter, calling Hamas's attack on October 7th horrific, but also attacking Israel for, quote, waging war against the people of Gaza. Netanyahu is set to appear in front of a joint session of Congress next Wednesday. Anti-Israel progressives such as Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have already said they will not be attending that speech.
Meanwhile, the IDF says that it's eliminated half of Hamas's military leadership in Gaza during the past 9 months. According to numbers released on Tuesday, they've taken out 6 brigade commanders, around 20 battalion commanders, and roughly 150 company commanders. Israeli authorities also say they have killed or arrested 14,000 Hamas fighters since entering Gaza and have also struck over 60,000 terrorist targets. In related news, the Israeli military military says Israel is fighting a multi-front war with Iran following a drone attack that exploded in a residential area of Tel Aviv. They say the drone was launched from Yemen. One civilian was killed and others were injured.
We are fighting a multi-front war. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the militias in Iraq and Syria, as well as the Houthis in Yemen, all the Iranian proxies, and Iran itself. Iran is funding, arming, and directing its terror proxies in their attacks on Israel and the wider world. We will not allow Iran and its proxies to terrorize our civilians, and we will continue to do everything we can to protect Israel's people and borders.
All this comes as an Israeli delegation arrived in Egypt on Wednesday to continue their talks on the latest ceasefire proposal in Gaza. The White House and other international mediators are pushing Israel and Hamas towards a phased deal that includes a 6-week ceasefire and would see around 120 hostages released. Negotiations have seen significant progress in the past week, but do remain fragile, especially as Israel targeted top Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif this weekend in a massive airstrike. His fate still remains unknown at this time, though Hamas claims he did survive that attack.
Meanwhile, a Russian court convicted American journalist Evan Gershkovich on espionage charges today following a highly controversial trial. Gershkovich was sentenced to 16 years in prison, and his conviction is the first time since the Cold War that a U.S. journalist has been imprisoned in Russia over allegations of espionage. The conviction and sentencing came just weeks after Gershkovich was brought before the court late last month. Analysts have speculated that the quick conviction is a sign that Russian authorities intend to use him as a bargaining tool in a future prisoner exchange with the U.S. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters earlier this year that Russia and the U.S. are discussing a potential prisoner swap. Following the conviction, Gershkovich's former employer, the Wall Street Journal, condemned the conviction as unjust and repeated their claim that Gershkovich was arrested for conducting legitimate journalism. Both the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. government have repeatedly denied Russian claims that Gershkovich was spying on military facilities for the CIA. And we have more news coming up next, but first let's go to Seth Didinsky for a moment in history.
Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Didinsky. Well, the Crusades, while controversial, have nonetheless achieved legendary status in the hearts of Christians for the last 1,000 years, in part because of the mythical heroes they involved. We've talked about many on this show. In the victorious First Crusade, there was among the Franks a man of this type of mythical heroism, a massive Norman warrior who stood on the front lines of this successful campaign of European nobles to free the Holy Land from the Turks. He was Bohemond I, Crusader prince and scourge of the Turks in the Near East. Now, Bohemond was born in the mid-11th century to a noble Norman family on the Italian peninsula. He was given the Christian name Mark at birth, but he was nicknamed Bohemond, named after the medieval myth giant warrior, and the name was well-deserved. Bohemond was the ideal Christian knight. He was religiously pious, he was a skilled fighter, and he was mighty in stature. Now, he would spend his life campaigning against several of the apocalyptic foes of Western medieval Christendom. First, it was against the Eastern Christian Byzantine Empire in the Mediterranean with his father, where he honed his skills and gained notoriety as a mighty warrior. But this first act in his life was merely a prologue for his acts of greatest prestige later in life, where he would travel further east than the Byzantine territory to the Holy Land itself, which had been, for the last 400 years, violently occupied by Muslim Turks. Christians in the Holy Land lived under constant threat of death, land seizure, and enslavement from their ruling Muslim warlords. As such, many of the thousands of knights who took the cross following Urban II's call to crusade in 1095 did so with pious and noble intentions, and Bohemond was one of these. He quickly became one of the chief leaders of the Prince's Crusade. Now, returning to the enemy he once fought in Constantinople first, Bohemond negotiated an uneasy truce with Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos. Alexios' daughter Anna chronicled much of this interaction and captured for us a clear and ideal picture of Bohemond. She wrote this of the Crusader, quote, "The appearance of this man was, to put it briefly, unlike that of any other man, whether Greek or barbarian, seen in those days on Roman soil. His stature was such that he towered almost a full cubit over the tallest man. He was slender of waist and flanks, with broad shoulders and chest, strong in the arms. Overall, he was neither too slender nor too heavily built, but fleshly, but perfectly proportioned." Well, Bohemond was as mighty in battle as he was handsome, according to Anna. He displayed great heroism at Nicaea and Antioch and was influential in the successful Christian recapture of these lands. For his courage at Antioch, he was hailed as the city's ruling prince, and the Principality of Antioch would become vital in the continuation of the Crusades for the next 2 centuries. Now, Bohemond spent the remainder of his life doing battle, mostly back with his eternal frenemies, the Byzantines. He would also return to Europe, he would marry, and he would have a son in his old age before his death in the year 1111. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions, and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge, life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, and I was driving and I saw the Women's Help Center sign, and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him, because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
Do you know what you are supporting when you purchase mutual funds and stocks? Think about it. When you invest in a company, you make a decision to support the things that that company supports. And it may not be things that you agree with. Financial Issues is a ministry teaching people like you how to invest biblically, responsibly, keeping your investments clear of companies that may support an ungodly agenda. Learn more by going to financialissues.org. Financialissues.org.
And welcome back to FISM News. I'm Renata Kiss. Well, let's continue in culture, where 3 large public school districts in Oklahoma are defying Bible teaching requirements by the state. Superintendent of Public Instruction Ryan Walters announced last month that he will require the teaching of the Bible to be part of every public school curriculum. He argued that students can only understand American history when they know the narrative of Scripture. But that's not how everybody sees it. Norman Public School Superintendent Nick Migliorani said he will not enforce the rule. He said, quote, "I'm just going to cut to the chase on that. Norman Public Schools is not going to have Bibles in our classrooms, and we're not going to require our teachers to teach from the Bible." Democrat Oklahoma Representative Annie Mentz, who represents Norman, said, quote, "The state superintendent and his out-of-state bosses want to put the Bible in schools, but take free lunches out." The revised curriculums, including Bible education and history classes, is scheduled to start in the fall. Democrat officials are expected to put up a fight against the new legislation.
And keeping with some religious news here, Trump VP pick J.D. Vance is trying to assuage evangelicals' concerns about their future in the GOP. Vance spoke at the Faith and Freedom Coalition breakfast in Milwaukee yesterday, where he said Christians, as well as social conservatives, will always have a place in the Republican Party.
There has been a lot of rumbling in the past few weeks that the Republican Party of now and the Republican Party of the future is not going to be a place that's welcoming to social conservatives. And really, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say that is not true. Social conservatives have a seat at this table, and they always will, so long as I have any influence in this party. And President Trump, I know, agrees.
His speech comes as some Christians have been frustrated by the RNC's 2024 platform, specifically for removing calls for a national abortion ban. Vance, who was baptized Catholic back in 2019, said the Trump campaign is playing the long game on the issue and said that Trump deserves some trust based on his record.
President Trump is uniquely capable and aware of politics being the art of the possible. What can we accomplish in the here and now? How do we advance the ball 1 yard before we advance it 10 yards before we advance it to a touchdown? And so I'd ask my social conservative friends, as you see the administration unfold, as you see the campaign unfold, remember that this is a guy who delivered for social conservatives more than any president in my 39 years of life. I think he deserves a little bit of grace, and he deserves a little bit of trust, and I hope that we will all provide that to him. I certainly know that as his running mate, I will.
And in some related news, Christian leaders are praying that Trump's attempted assassination would lead the presidential candidate closer to God. Here's Southern Baptist Theological Seminary's Dr. Albert Mohler discussing the spiritual significance of Trump's experience with Family Research Council's Tony Perkins.
The president has made some comments. In fact, I sent him a message. I was appreciative of his comments, saying that he acknowledged God's hand of protection. Right. I'm hoping and praying this is a turning point for the president, understanding and seeing God's hand upon his life.
First of all, I appreciate what you just said about President Trump. I'm praying the Lord uses this, even the blood on his ear, the blood that he had on his hand, and looks at that, realizes how close he came to meeting his maker. I can only pray that will be a spiritually healthy turning point in the president's life.
Harvest Christian Fellowship's Pastor Greg Laurie echoed these comments.
He's publicly acknowledged Jesus Christ. He's publicly acknowledged that God spared his life. And so we should be praying for his recovery. And by the way, Ruslan, if we were having the same conversation about President Biden, I'd be saying the same thing.
Laurie added that while this was a close call for Trump, it was also a wake-up call for the rest of the country.
We need to turn to God. And this is a wake-up call, how vulnerable our leaders are, how we need to turn to the Lord and pray for their protection. And I said publicly at church yesterday, we need to pray for the protection of both candidates. Amen. You know, we don't want to see acts of violence against anybody.
And finally, let's end the week on an encouraging note. Speaking of prayer, famed evangelist Franklin Graham gave a prayer for the final night of the RNC yesterday evening. Graham thanked God for sparing Donald Trump's life and asked God to give guidance to the country during these difficult times.
We stand before you tonight. We say thank you for the provisions you have given to the United States of America. You have blessed this country more than any country in the world. Sadly, as a nation, we have forgotten who is responsible for all the freedoms, the liberties, and the bounty that we enjoy. It has all come for you. Thank you. This evening, our nation is in trouble. We're divided politically, racially, economically, with millions of people seeking refuge and hope in our dry and thirsty land. You're the only one who can fix the complexity of the problems that we face today.
Graham closed out his prayer by asking God to, quote, unite our hearts, bring us together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I wish I had the clip there too, but he did also pray for President Biden, just as Pastor Laurie was saying as well.
Yeah,
so it was a great prayer.
Exactly. All right, well, that's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And please visit FISMnews.tv for more content.
And we hope you have a great weekend. You can check us out on social media at FISM News, or you can download our app, the FISM app, right to your smartphone. Thanks so much. God bless, and we'll see you on Monday with more news.